I got a text message this morning from somebody saying, hey, you know, this ties into my story from the other night. What'd you say, Mike? U.S. District Court Judge Dabney Friedrich of the District of Columbia struck down a nationwide eviction moratorium yesterday. Nice. I agree. It's not unlawful, it's immoral. Okay. So anyway, my story was I got a text from some agent saying, hey, how come we have to wait till Friday to get paid? And my note last night said, hey, you know, what is my word? Empathy is something we all need to work on, understanding both sides of a story. And I think what your class is going to do today is help us empathize with the vendors and understand the process we're going through. So when we write a commission check, you know, it probably takes 10 minutes for one person, but there's a whole process that goes in behind the systems because we're closing out Dash, we're closing out MLS, we're closing out, that's just writing the checks. And we got to pay the service fees, we got to pay the National Advertising Fund fees, everything gets categorized and paid. And if you look at our hot sheet, you'll see we're doing 10, 15, 20 closings a day, right? So if you have a 10-minute process and there's 20 of them a day, that's 200 minutes, that's 4 hours. And we have a system that works, and we wish we could do other things differently, but understand there's a lot going on. And then when you see, and that's why I bitch so much about the beginning of the month and the end of the month, it's brutal at the end of the month on the surveyors, on the title companies, on the lenders, on the loan officers, on the underwriters, everything. It just blows up. So I want us to be, as agents, empathetic with the system, and we have to be in control of the situation. In order to be in control of the situation, you have to understand the flow. So I appreciate those of you who are watching, and let's let Sean and Tiffany take it away. And you're muted, Sean.
How about now?
There you go.
Much better, much better. I was having some technical difficulties this morning. I couldn't get logged in for some reason. So can you also add Crystal Woods as a panelist?
See if
what happened to you, Fred?
I don't know. I just scratched my lens, I think. Okay, I just promoted her to panelist, and I will.
Excellent.
I don't think I can do it. Mike, I guess as a co-host, I can't. There she is. All right, perfect.
Here I am.
Yep.
Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. All right, so we are going to get this party started. So we are super excited about this class. This is something different than we've ever done. I think it's good to understand kind of the process of the file. Once it leaves you from the contract phase and it goes to the title company and the lender, and kind of knowing the steps in between, timeframes on things are very important because there's certain things we can't order within a certain amount of time frame, or we have to wait until a certain amount of time frame from the contract to be able to order. So I think understanding a lot of those things will help in the process, maybe help you guys understand, you know, better how that flows and how the timing really affects everything. So if you have a 45-day contract, there's certain things that we can't order in the first 15 or so days, pending, you know, because we have to have things that are good within the last 30 days. So we're going to kind of talk through all of that, make sure everybody understands. And please, if you have any questions, chat us those questions. We'll be watching those as well, and we're going to get started. So this is how you close the deal, kind of like how to lose a guy in 10 days, where we're going to talk about how to close a contract in 45 days or less. So, of course, you have me. I'm Sean. I think most of you probably already know me. Joining us as well, we have Tiffany. You guys know Tiffany. We also have Crystal Woods. She's another one of our business development reps, and she's going to play the role of the agent, buyer, seller. Her and Tiffany are going to kind of bounce off each other and really challenge me, I think, throughout this process. I hope they don't challenge me too much, though. Just kidding. So the 100-euro question, you know, so have you ever asked yourself, what does the title company do? What do we do actually after we receive the executed contract? I did not write this. I'm so sorry. But do they sell car titles? Can they assist me in obtaining a boxing title? That we might be able to do. Car titles, probably not so much, but the boxing title, yeah, we can probably handle that one for you. After all, we are the title company, right? So obviously, no, we can't sell you a car title or give you advice on how to win a boxing title, although again, we could probably help you with some of that. But we can ensure that your clients have a smooth and safe closing process when they either buy their dream home or sell their money pit. Maybe they're selling their home to buy their dream home, so different things. So this is just kind of a breakdown of the process from the time the contract it hits our desk, what happens from a title's perspective, from your perspective as the agent, and then from the lender's perspective from the loan application all the way through processing and up to the point of closing. So we're going to kind of break this down for you a little bit more. We also talk about a little bit about the closing process and then the post-closing process. What happens after closing? What do they expect? What should they receive, et cetera. So let's talk about days 1 through 3 in the life of a file. So day 1, you've got your contract accepted. Your EMD needs to be delivered now, and you've got 3 days to get that. They've got 3 days to get that into us, and we need to make sure that that obviously is happening. Lender's application process has started. I'm sure they've already got their pre-approval started, so they have some information. Now comes the heavy stuff, the heavy lifting, all the documentation, et cetera. And then we, as the title company, we open the title order. We start the order process. Sorry, I went a little too far there for a second. We start the order process, getting the title search ordered, the lien search ordered, and those types of things, making those introduction calls, sending out those welcome emails and packets, et cetera. So from that point, obviously, you know, again, as we alluded, the EMD part is very important. It's contractual. They have 3 days to get that in. So how can I get Paramount Title my EMD money, right? So you guys know we now have the earnest money deposit digital delivery system called Payload, and now they can log into our website, actually make their deposit on the website through Payload, and it's really that easy. It's 2 screens once they get into the Payload system to complete, and they're done. It's a $9 fee that's charged by the Payload company, and that is much, much cheaper, obviously, than sending a wire out, and, you know, what is convenience worth? Honestly, it saves them the time of having to drive to an office, find an office local to them, write the check out, get that in, and it just expedites things a lot quicker. Obviously, if they have a deposit that's over $10,000, we would recommend that they wire those funds in. Anything over $10,000 we can't accept through Payload, but anything under $10,000 we definitely can. So if you have a situation where you have a very large deposit, and I know you guys sometimes have those, definitely get in touch with us. We'll get those wiring instructions out to the client ASAP so that they can get those funds wired in within that 3-day time frame.
Sean, I have a question.
So again,
So I saw that you said we can do checks. So if we wanted to submit a check, are we bound to just go to the Paramount Title office, or how do we do that? How can we send in a check if we're not tech savvy?
You are going to challenge me, aren't you? I love it. So that's a very good question, and thank you for asking that, Crystal. That is correct. You can go to any of our title offices. So as you know, we are under the Florida Agency Network brand, and with that, there are several other locations that they can go. They can drop it off at our Hillsborough Title office. They can drop it off at our Tampa Bay Title office. We have over 30 locations statewide, and whatever is most convenient for them, they can drop it off at any of those locations. And you can obviously, log into our website, find those locations under Florida Agency Network and those different brands, and they can definitely drop that off at any of those. We will take that in and make sure that it gets deposited into their file, and easy, very easy. So thank you for asking that.
And no worries, guys. If your clients are like me and they don't have checks, because a lot of us, we don't have checks and they don't feel comfortable doing it online and they don't want to do a wire, they can bring a cashier's check or a money order to our office as well.
Yep.
And then we have a question from Mike Clayman. Do all banks authorize Payload?
Say that again?
Do all banks authorize Payload?
It is my understanding they do. The one area that we have had issues with is when they try to do it out of their savings account. Those tend to get rejected. So if they are trying to transfer funds out of their savings, the best thing is to move the funds into their checking and then do it out of their checking, because it's truly like an e-check. If you think about that, you can't really write a check off your savings account. So it's best to move those funds into your checking and then do it from your checking account. And I don't know if you know what Zelle is, but I apologize, I don't.
It's
Do you know what
not-
Zelle is, Christine?
It's not like Zelle, it's, because like Zelle is like an app that people can do for, to transfer cash from one person to another. This is a lot more safer. It's really just like going online and doing an online transfer from one account to our account.
It's not like a money app or anything like that where you can go in and use a debit card or a credit card. It has to be a checking account that you're pulling these funds from. They won't accept, you can't do it from a debit or credit card. And if you think about that, the lender's not going to allow you to make your deposit through a credit card or a debit card either. They're going to want to see those funds transfer and source those funds from the borrower's account.
Yeah, Zelle is an app I use a lot, but there's a limit. I think it's $2,500 is the max you can send at one time. And most often our deposits are bigger than that. And I've used your online deposit system easily. I mean, you need your routing number from the left-hand corner of your check and your account number, and that's it, and it's done. I mean, anybody
And you
can.
can even tell them to put in, sorry, Craig, you can even tell them to put in your email address, and it'll send you a receipt when they make that deposit as well. So you as the agent, you can tell them, plug in my email address as an additional party to be able to obtain a copy of the receipt, and it'll send you the receipt as well once they make that deposit. So you'll have that showing they made it, and then of course we'll send you the formal receipt once we receive as well. All right, good stuff. Okay, so back to days 1 through 3 in the life of the file. So now title has the file. We've obtained the fully executed contract, we've opened the file, we've ordered the title search, we've ordered the lien search, and we start our fact finding. What does that mean? So by fact finding, we have started to reach out to the clients, the buyers, the sellers, trying to see if we can obtain any payoff information from the seller. Obviously, we need some personal information from them as well in order to be able to conduct the closing. And then your buyers, lenders information, et cetera, as far as, getting their contact information, parties involved. Marital status is hugely important to make sure that we are, dealing with all the parties needed in the transaction. As an example, if we have one seller on the file, the seller is married, even if they've been married but separated for 20 years and not legally divorced, their spouse still needs to sign off on the deed if it was his homestead property. So it's important to know these things up front so that we know what kind of challenges we might be faced with going forward, and we can start rectifying those challenges and getting those cleared before we get down to the day of closing. And then prior policies. Why is it important to receive a copy of the prior policy? So we always try to be proactive in our processes and obtaining as much information as we can. Sometimes the prior policy is needed because the sale of the property or the purchase of the property, I should say, was less than 3 years ago, and they're entitled to a portion of that premium back. They get a reissue credit on their title premium, so it saves them some money. Other reasons can be because if there's a title issue or a title flaw that we find in our search, it could possibly be covered by that prior policy. So just having that in our hands helps us be more proactive when issues arise or concerns arise, allowing us to rectify those a lot quicker. All right, so now we're stretching it out days 4 through 30. Long time frame, I know, long period of time going by there. So the clock is ticking now. The inspections have been ordered. The loan process has officially started, and the bank needs everything, including their first warrant at this time. As you guys know, that can be sometimes, it's a lot of paperwork that they have to get into that lender, and making sure they get it into them timely, getting them everything that they need to avoid any delays in their process is hugely important. So obviously that communication there with that lender is very, very vital to the transaction. Appraisal process shortly after the inspection, and loan processing is completed as well throughout this period of time. And then continuing on for days 4 through 30, Your title search should be coming back in anytime between the 3rd and 7th business day. I will tell you right now, because the industry is just booming, sometimes they're running a little behind on those. We typically get them back within 3 to 7 business days. We can order some of them as a rush as needed if we have a quick close. And sometimes we can get those back within 24 to 48 hours. But typically right now we are standardly running closer to that 7 business day to get our title back, because the underwriters are just, they're slammed. If you think about all the contracts that you guys have on top of all the contracts everybody else has, it gets a little busy. So they're dealing with a lot there. But they are very, very good to us, and they tend to help us out when we need it. And if we need something in a hurry, they'll definitely get those over to us. Lien searches are 7 to 15 business days. Let's talk about lien searches just a little bit. So on the lien searches, we don't have as much leeway in time. We are dealing with the municipalities. Some municipalities will allow us to order these searches as a rush, but the majority will not. And with that being said, because they won't, they stick very hard to that 15-day time frame to get those back to us. We try to butter them up. Gonna be honest, we send them, by we, I mean our ancillary company that does the lien searches, they'll send them, you know, edible bouquets and flowers and chocolates, and I mean, they really try to get them to get on our side so we can get things, and sometimes they do, but sometimes they are just, again, they are hardcore and they stick to that time frame. So we work as hard as we can to get those back as quickly as possible, but sometimes it's just not possible, unfortunately, depending on the municipality that we're dealing with. So those can take a little bit more time, obviously, and hinder sometimes those really, really quick closes. If we're trying to do one in, 20 days or less, again, it's possible, but sometimes that can be our one thing that we're pending and waiting for. Surveys are typically 3 to 10 business days, weather permitting. Again, just kind of elaborating on that a little further. Surveyors are really, really busy right now, and some of them are actually running 2 to 3 weeks behind in getting surveys. Somebody told me it was because of the weather, and I'm like, I don't know about y'all, but I see the sun shining a lot. I don't know what that weather permitting means or that weather issue means, but they are equally as slammed. They have a lot of surveys coming in, survey requests coming in. Obviously, again, business is booming. Everybody is going as quickly as they can to meet those deadlines and get those things out for everybody involved so that we can get them closed. They have the same goal in mind that we all have in getting that deal closed. So just saying that again is to just kind of elaborate on the fact that we're at the mercy of the people that we're working with and trying to get these things done. So we do have several different surveyors that we work with, not just one in particular. And we try to work with, if we have one that can't get it done quickly enough, we go to another one and ask them, and then typically they, can work, we'll try to work between them to see who can get it done through the quickest. And obviously we want to, take cost into consideration there as well. Your payoff, go ahead.
So I just want to interject real quick, if you don't mind, about the survey, guys. If you have a large survey, as in, your client is buying an acre, 3 acres, 4 acres. A lot of the survey companies will want us to get your client to pay up front, because if it cancels, they don't want to be out $800, to $1,200. Okay. So a lot of times we'll wait to order that survey until the lender lets us know that they're good for us to order it. As in, the lender will say, hey, we've already gone through the appraisal came back, go ahead and order the survey. So keep that in mind in those timeframes, that we don't always order the survey right up front, especially working with lenders. Because on the smaller ones, a lot of survey companies will let us cancel, no problem. No one's going to get charged because it's, the price of doing business. But with those larger ones, it's a little more tricky.
That's a really good point, Tiffany, and thank you for bringing that up as well. I'm curious though, when you guys have situations like that, are you reaching out to the client to see if they want to front the money to go ahead and get it done? You are? Okay, good. Good. I think that's important to give them that option, and then if they don't, we know we have to wait until we have that final approval from the lender to go ahead and move forward at that point.
Yeah, a lot of survey companies will ask them to put like a credit card on file with them.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. All right, so payoffs. Payoffs are typically easy to get. I mean, most of them we get 24 or 48 hours, we're getting them back. You do have some lenders that are still a little more finicky, or they take a little longer, and sometimes it depends on, where the seller is at in their mortgage. If they're delinquent, those can take a little bit longer because now we're having to deal with attorney's fees and foreclosure fees or pre-foreclosure fees that may be tacked onto that lien, and it takes them a little bit longer to get those done. So that's typically where your 10 business day turnaround comes into play when you're dealing with those types of situations. But for the most part, we can typically get those within 24 to 48 hours. I've seen some take, 3 to 5 days as well on a standard payoff, just depending upon who the lender is, who we're dealing with. And sometimes we can get the client's help in that if we're in a pinch situation, and I'll talk about that a little more in a minute, where we need that. Maybe the closing date's been moved up. We weren't able to order the payout because we weren't within that 30-day time frame, and they want to close in 15 days as opposed to 30 days or 45 days that the contract, originally said. And things changed, and they're ready to go. So, we wouldn't have ordered that payoff during that time frame, and we may need your help or your client's help in getting those done. In situations like that. And estoppels. So estoppels are probably the biggest thing that we have to wait on. There's so many variables in an HOA estoppel that we have to see and review and confirm. And as you probably know, the HOAs are not very forgiving, and they're not very cooperative when it comes to those timeframes and getting those into us. So estoppels, we cannot order those until we're within 30 days of the contract closing date. So again, remember that contract closing date is how we set our timing for everything. So if we get a contract in and it's dated 45 days out, we can't start ordering really any of these things other than the title and lien search until we are within 30 days of that contract closing date. So bearing that in mind, when we order an estoppel, we try to order it, within that 30 days. So once we hit that 30-day mark, we're starting our order process for that. We have tasks that set up and remind us that it's due and time to order those things. And our team is pretty good about making sure that they're checking those and getting those out. That being said, as an example, when we submit that request to our estoppel department to get that estoppel ordered, the clock starts ticking for us on that day. However, they being the estoppel team, get the request in. Let's say they get the request in today. They have to overnight a check to the HOA to do the estoppel. So they pay the funds up front to pay the HOA for obtaining the estoppel. They overnight that check to the HOA gets it the next day, their clock starts ticking the following day. So 2 days later, their clock starts ticking, and they take 10 days to get us the estoppel. Well, just because they take 10 days to get the estoppel, we're already 2 days in, so really, it takes 12 days for us to get that estoppel. And again, as you guys know, sometimes the HOAs, they are hardcore on that timeline, and they're not always going to release that within the amount of time that we would like to have it in. Of course, we can pay a rush fee and get it in a lot less time than 3 days typically, but that rush fee is usually $100 extra on top of the estoppel, so we try to avoid having to pay those extra fees for your client. So that being said, again, if you have a closing that has moved up and we are not within the time frame that we would have normally been in to order that HOA estoppel, now we've got a tighter timeline, and it's business days, bearing that in mind, not calendar days, business days. So if I ordered the estoppel today, they received the money tomorrow, the clock starts ticking on Monday. Monday's my first day, and you count 10 days, business days out from there. I mean, we're over 2 weeks away before we can even get that estoppel. So I tell you that because that is typically one of the biggest things that is a sticking point for us whenever we're trying to process the file, is the timing on that. And if you move that contract date up, which we don't have a problem with, just bearing that time frame in mind and understanding the time frame that it takes for us to get those, is a huge part of our process, and we don't want your client to incur additional funds, so we kind of have to talk through what that looks like, the whys and hows, and what we can do to make that happen. And sometimes, you know, when we move those up, we have to pay that additional rush fee, which is incurred by the client at that point in order to meet that new closing deadline. Does that make sense to you guys? Yes?
It does to me.
I hope that makes sense to everyone
And-
else on the call and they understand that as well.
And guys, if you have an HOA that you know needs buyer approval and you have the buyer, go ahead and get your buyer to start working on that, because a lot of the times we will not get our estoppel back. They'll hold it until buyer has approval. They won't release our estoppel. And if there's an additional issues on the estoppel, violations or anything like that, we won't know because the buyer hasn't been approved. So if you know ahead of time, get your buyer to go ahead and get that approval process started and done so that we can get the estoppel back on time.
Very important. That's very good information as well. So when we get those back, obviously we're looking for, you know, what is owed on the HOA? Are there any past dues that are owed on the HOA? Are there any violations? And violations is another thing that we have to really review, make sure everything is good. And if we have violations, obviously those have to be cleared. The HOA has to sign off on that, and we have to have the clear on that to make sure that there are no dues or no fees or fines levied against those violations and against the seller. So those are other, you know, time constraining issues that we have to sometimes get resolved and worked out ASAP so that we can, again, meet that deadline for that closing date. All right, so now we've ordered all these things, and we're going to start our review process as well during this time frame. So we're going to start reviewing that title search, start the curative process, you know, looking to see if there's anything that needs to be taken care of. Sometimes we have a deceased party that's entitled, and we need to see if there's a probate, and we've got to work through those obstacles. So that's very important to kind of communicate that, and knowing those types of information, that type of information up front, helps us as well to start that even before the search comes back in, so that we can start getting the information that we need to clear any potential, you know, issues that we may have with title.
Hey, Sean,
So need the commitment to all. Yes, sir.
what percentage of the time do we have title problems we have to work through? It's like not very much, right? 10%, 20%?
Well, I would say maybe 30%.
Okay.
Would
I
you
mean,
guys agree with that?
You got to pretend that everything could be a problem, but most of the time it's not.
You do, but most of the time it's not. But when we do have them, sometimes the obstacles that we have to overcome and locating people from 3 titles ago, you know, and getting a corrective deed becomes a bit challenging. And we have those. I have one right now that we're working on, and it's from 3 sellers ago that the issue was created, and there were quitclaim deeds all in between. So that's typically where you see a lot of the issues arise, is when, you know, mom and pop deeded to, you know, brother and sister deeded to best friend, and best friend deeded to, you know, whoever they sold it to on a quitclaim deed, and it's done. And they've created all these title defects throughout the whole chain because the deed was never conveyed correctly to start with.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay, I was thinking in the past, I don't think we do it anymore, but I think we used to request a title input form when the agents never filled them out. But that would like identify you of what the upcoming issues are, but that presumed the agents knew what they were looking for. So I think we did away with that form, didn't we? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. I guess we don't do it anymore, so.
We don't get that form, so.
Okay.
No, we just rely on everything. And, you know, before all this craziness happened, we could get this stuff back a little quicker. But right now, everybody is just so slammed that they're pushing the envelope to get it to us within the 7 business day time, so.
Can
And
ask a
federal
question.
tax
Working.
liens. Guys, federal tax liens. We're dealing with the IRS. So if our commitment shows the federal tax lien, there's nothing we can do to push that process any faster than, you know, I think right now they're out, to get back to us, like 12 business days, something like that. And that doesn't sound too long, but then
20, so, well, it's good.
Yes.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound long.
yeah.
but that doesn't always mean that when they get back to us that they have what we need right then and there. So then it's an additional time. So just know that, you know, read your commitments. And if you guys have any, we send out the commitments. And if you guys have questions on what the commitment means, come to me, send me a text and say, hey, this is on the commitment. What's that gonna do for us? And I'm happy to help and, you know, explain any of it for you so that you know if there's going to be a timeline problem.
And then here's your script. Whenever
And
something
addition-
goes wrong, just say, that damn title company, they didn't do it right. That's the answer.
Correct. Not nice.
Well, that's what they used to
Nice.
say. It's the title company's fault. They didn't get the federal tax lien released. And it's not the title company's fault. It's the US government dealing with 330 million people and not giving a shit and working from home and having COVID and supply chain disruption and all the other crap we deal with.
Yes.
This is all real stuff. So tell everybody up front to take a chill pill and don't rush. Ken put a question. If the buyer has submitted all the loan documentation to the lender is waiting on the contract to address the order and appraisal, there is a 5-day inspection period. The buyer will pay for any expenses incurred by the title company or starting immediately in the event it doesn't close. What's the shortest closing date you can accommodate in this competitive market? So that's a multifaceted question because it depends.
Yes.
Is it an HOA? Do
Yeah.
we need an HOA estoppel? Do we need bop, 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 bop? So you can address that one, and I could go talk to my lawn guy real quick.
Yes, so number one, we don't pass any costs over to the client whenever we start the process up front. We incur those costs. If it doesn't close, then we're at that cost. And a lot of times we view that as if this contract doesn't close, there's going to be another contract coming behind it for the same property, and we're going to close that one and get our money, you know, through that transaction. So we're okay with that part of it. As far as, you know, accommodating what's the time frame, there are a lot of variables, as Craig, you know, stated below. And if I'm just going to say, if the stars align and everything is perfect and there are no issues, I mean, we can close it in, you know, 10 days. If there are some issues, I would say, you know, 20 to 30 days, 30 days being the norm of about the time that it takes us to typically close a transaction, pending, you know, any types of obstacles that we may have to overcome. If there are any obstacles in title, obviously any HOA obstacles. So everything has to kind of fall into place. But we've closed deals in 24 hours. We don't want to make that a norm. And that's a very challenging situation. And we have had things, typically those are coming from another title company that could do it. So we've been able to obtain documentation and information from the other company, pulled it over, utilize that information, did our own search and get them to close. But I would say on average, definitely, you know, within 30 days, and if we wanted to push the envelope a little bit, we could do them in 15 to 20 days, depending. So I hope that answers your question. It's a little more, there's a lot more to that than just saying this is the standard amount of time, because again, it depends on those obstacles. It depends on the lender is going to be a big point. They are also very, very busy and trying to meet these deadlines and these time frames and stuff to get to closing. So there's a lot of in between there to be able to really put down a definite time frame. So, and you are very welcome. All right.
So Sean, I have a question as well. So if I have a client that knows that there was 3 people on title, 1 has passed away. If I know that in advance at my listing appointment, what is the best way to convey that to the title, and what would you need up front to help your team?
Very good question. So if you have a situation like that where you have a deceased party that you know was entitled, that's very valuable information for us. Knowing, you know, was it a husband and wife situation? In this particular situation, you have 3 parties entitled. Did they take title as joint tenants with full rights of survivorship? Were any of them married to each other? Was it homestead property? Homestead property is going to make a big difference in what we need as well. But knowing that type of information when you give us the contract will help us know what direction, that we need to go. and what we need to look for in that process. So, has the property been probated? You know, do they have heirs? Any of that information will be very helpful. Are they working with an attorney who's handling their estates? All of that information will be very helpful in helping us, you know, get a leg up, so to speak, on the process of that file and starting that communication with all parties that we need to in order to, you know, meet those timeframes for closing and get what we needed so we can start that ball rolling. Anything else you can think of there, Crystal?
The other one that I was thinking is, I've seen a lot of trusts lately, a lot of sellers who own a property in a trust. What do I need to do in advance for not just my file, but for the title company as well, if I see that a seller is a trust?
So if the seller is in a trust, technically, we don't have to review a copy of that trust if the deed is conveyed properly. If there are any issues or questions regarding that trust, then we're going to ask for a copy of the trust. The other caveat to that is if the seller who is in a trust does not have an account in the name of their trust, we have to review a copy of that trust to determine the beneficiaries of that trust to make sure that we are clear to disperse the funds individually to that person. So that's usually our biggest factor in getting the trust. Most times, I would say 90% of the time, the seller doesn't have an account in their trust, and we have to review that to make sure that the sellers, the individual trustees, are the actual beneficiaries of the trust as well, and they can individually get those funds. So.
Perfect.
All right. Was there anything that you feel like I missed in that you can, as somebody that's on the front lines with this as well, can relay to them, Crystal?
I mean, being in the front line of this and working in the title side, those are the few things that come up frequently. But the timelines are perfect. Everything you've explained about title searches, lien searches, surveys, you know, we also, cash purchases don't require surveys, but we always want to make sure that the clients are aware that that's an option. So my advice as a title agent to any agents on this call is that if you think that your client might want a survey, let your title agent know up front, so that way we can make sure to factor that into the process.
Yeah, very good. And something else you mentioned, I want to make sure that I mention as well on lien searches is, you know, contractually now the lien search is just for any assessments, utility liens, taxes, those types of things is what's covered in the contract under the 159 lien search, municipality lien search. We also offer the additional searches that we used to do, which is the permit and code searches. Those are, you know, if the county charges a cost for that, usually it's about $25 or so, then obviously those costs are passed on to the buyer if they want those additional searches. But we need to know that up front so that we can make sure that gets ordered for you. So please make sure that you let us know that as well. Even if you have that information at the time you're going to submit the contract, tell us, and we'll make sure that that search gets ordered also. But we do send out a reminder email on those to let you know, hey, these additional searches are optional. They are available if you would like to have them. You just need to let us know that, and we will get them ordered for you. So, all right. So back to our review process, we send our commitment out to all parties so that everybody has that. Again, that's a contractual requirement that we get that commitment out as soon as possible. I think it's within 15 days of the contract closing date that they have to have that. So we get those out automatically. And depending on when the closing is scheduled, we can then order the payoff and estoppel and the survey, which we kind of alluded to it and talked about those timeframes for that. And then the client may start receiving some communication from our Alana AI. That's our virtual assistant. She is very helpful. If they have questions, there's a number they can text to and ask her a question, and she will answer. She can even, if they ask her, she can even tell you. She can even tell you a joke. So, did I pass her? Oh. Yeah, we'll get to that part in just a second. So. Anyway, days 4 through 30, we are still continuing with those days. Again, that's a long time frame, I know, but just wanted to lay out a normal time frame of things that happen within that 45 days contract if we stick to that 45-day contract timeframe. So Alana AI will start to communicate with the parties involved in the file. And then who is Alana? And Alana is, again, that's our virtual closing assistant that works 24/7. She's always available. If there's questions that you have and it's after hours and you can't reach anybody, where's my closing? When am I closing? What's my closing cost? Is my survey back? Is my title back? You know, different questions like that they can ask. And she will respond and let them know, you know, the information that she has and give them their answers. So below are just a few of the touch points Alana pushes out during the life of the file. Obviously, she pushes out a welcome email or a welcome text, letting them know, hey, your file's been opened and what do you expect? I don't know if you guys have seen those. If you have, I think they're great. There's even a little short video with them where Amy Gregory, the president of our company, kind of gives them a heads up of, you know, what's next? You know, now you've got your file open. What happens next? Where do we go from here? Title work is ready. Same thing, another video with the text comes out and says, hey, you know, title work's completed. I know you're getting excited. You know, what do we expect next? Where do we go from here? Same thing all the way down through there. Processing completed. Closing figures are ready, the file is closed, and now the documents have been recorded. So it gives those little touch points throughout the process of the file to the client so that they know kind of where we're at and what's happening. And those are there to help them and understand. And then of course the short videos are very helpful and, you know, what the next steps are, what to expect, et cetera. We do have a question here. What if my client has his late wife's house that has a mortgage that has her former deceased husband on the mortgage? What a mess. Yes, she died without a will. Okay, so we have a client who, his late wife, so she was remarried, I assume it sounds like, in the process, and now the house is his. The mortgage was in her name and her deceased husband's name. A lot of times in those situations, I mean, it just depends on the lender. Usually you can get a death certificate and send it in to the lender, and they will assist based on that information. They may want the heirs to handle that if she had children. That is a mess. Mike, I thought the girls were going to challenge me today, but you have definitely challenged me on this one. So I would
Mike
really
for the
have to see,
win.
there's a lot of variables on that. Yeah, there's a lot of variables on that. I would really have to review the title to kind of see where we go from there. But I mean, I would start with as far as getting the mortgage payoff. And if she died without a will, I think probate is going to be possibly involved if he was never entitled on the property. And it sounds like if the mortgage was still in hers and her deceased husband's name, that it probably never transferred from her to her and her new husband. So with that, there's definitely going to be probate involved. However, if she did transfer the property from herself and her new husband, then the property would automatically revert to him as the new husband on homestead property. So a lot of different things. I don't know if we're handling this file, but if there's anything that I can help you with, my number will be at the end of this class. Definitely feel free to give me a call and we can talk about that further to help you out with that. So. All right. Okay, so moving on. So say hello to Alana. This is, again, our virtual assistant. She is a bot, but she's our virtual assistant. She's available 24/7. And even if you text her, this is her number here. If you want to write this down, you can text her and ask her to tell you a joke. She'll tell you a joke. They're a little corny, and sometimes she'll even laugh at her own joke, which is quite hilarious. She'll give you a little laughy cry face. So she's fun in addition to being very informative and giving you the information you need. And please, you know, feel free to utilize her. And of course, we are always available. She's not a replacement for us. She's just somebody that's there for you in those times when it's after hours and you can't reach us for any reason. Maybe it's during hours and you try to call and you need a quick answer. She can give you those answers as well, and, you know, and help you out with your files. So, all right, so day 4 through 30, we are so close. All right, so review, now we've ordered all the stuff that we needed. We're reviewing the payoff, the estoppel, the survey, et cetera, when it's received. We're requesting any outstanding invoices, and what does that mean, outstanding invoices? Well, sometimes there may be a home warranty contractually that needs to be paid at closing. So we're, asking for that information so that we can get that added to our closing as well. Maybe there's disbursement authorizations, as you see next, or a pay at close form that we need so that we can get your commission balanced and paid at closing for you, so you don't have to wait, go through the broker, et cetera. And then continuing to clear any title issues that we may have and still be working on at that point. And the processor may reach out to the clients to receive any additional information to complete their processing of the file. If anything else should pop up that they didn't get in the interim, maybe something else popped up later on that they realized they needed additional information on, different stuff like that, so.
Hey, Sean, I want to comment on the home warranty side because, like I said last night, empathy. We have to understand the process that goes through. So our agents are supposed to complete a deal sheet. Well, the contract's supposed to be marked home warranty, right? And if it's marked home warranty,
Yes.
then the customer is supposed to select which options they want on their home warranty. So we got to give them a home warranty worksheet. And then that home warranty order needs to be sent into our back office, and Angelique will send that in to the home warranty company. And then the home warranty company will send the agent the home warranty bill. And the agent needs to give that to you, the title company, so you know to put it on the closing statement. So just ordering the home warranty, but not passing the bill on to you and not verifying that it's been paid on the HUD means the home warranty wasn't issued. So the customer said they wanted it, but it ends up being the agent's fault for not getting it in the hands of the title company. I think I said that right. So that's where everybody needs to be on the same page and working together, because if the customer wants a home warranty and they think they got one, and then the house closes and it wasn't delivered, we're kind of hands tied. We can't go back and say, hey, warranty, we wanted to buy one, but now the AC is broken. We really need one. It's too late. It's now a pre-existing condition and they're not going to cover it. So when a warranty is ordered, and they should be ordered, the agent's got to make sure they get the order form to you, to the title company. And then we should remember at time of closing, when we're reviewing the HUD before the seller signs it, make sure the home warranty bill is on there. If not, get it on there quickly. Right? So we have time to review, but we have to do it. So it's just one case where we're all working together, but they'll point the finger and say, damn, title company forgot to order the home warranty. But you didn't fill out a deal sheet and you didn't send them the invoice. So how are they supposed to know to order the warranty? You know what I mean? So I'm not being anti-agent here, but I'm just stressing the importance of communication around and knowing the flow of systems. So my 2 cents.
Yep, perfect, thank you, Craig.
Yeah, you
All right,
guys.
I went back to the screen.
I was just gonna say, your sheet that you guys fill out, that comes over to us with all your information. It's really important for us to have your buyer or seller's email and phone number in order for Alana to work efficiently. If we don't have that information, Alana's not gonna be able to do her job. So your buyers or sellers are gonna miss out on a lot of the cool things that we actually offer as a title company, and all those personal touches that we're trying to do for you to make sure that they have the best experience as possible. So it's really important to get us those phone numbers and those emails for your buyers and sellers as soon as possible.
And to that point, when you guys don't turn in a deal sheet, the staff fills out the best they can, but we don't have their contact information. We're kind of screwed. And just like they said, they need to call. You don't want to do all this work. Let the title company call and say, hey, we need this, hey, we need that. But if they don't have their phone numbers, then they got to call you. And you're adding one more step in your life. So fill out the deal sheet. It's just a fill out dot loop, auto-populate. Most everything's there. Look at it, make sure whatever's not auto-populated, fill in the blanks. The gate code, is there signs, instructions, all that type of stuff makes a difference. And we can streamline the whole process.
We definitely want to make this as easy as we can on you guys. I know that you are super, super busy, obviously right now, especially with this hot market that we're in. And the fewer phone calls from us, the better. So definitely providing that information to us up front is a huge help and a huge time saver for us and for you, and for your clients. Now, there are times, I will just elaborate on that a little bit more, that we reach out to the clients and we can't get a return phone call from them, or we can't get them to respond to our emails, et cetera. So we may call you if 2 or 3 days have gone by and we're trying to attain some pretty important information from them and they are not responding. we may call and say, can you give them a nudge? Just poke them a little bit and see if you can get them to reach out to us to give us this information, because it's really important. And we do, we do meet those challenges sometimes as well, and do need your help with that occasionally. And I see a hand raised. If you have a question, definitely put that in the chat, and we'll, unless you're raising your hand for praise. But thank you. All right, so moving right along here. So we went back to Alana. I wanted to make sure you guys got that number. We did have a question for that. I wanted to make sure that you have that. And now we're moving on day 31 and 32, and Pablo Escobar is still waiting. So we are still in the waiting stage, getting down to those final days, the final approval, ready to close. Everybody's getting excited. They're antsy. They want to move on, day 33 through 40. We're going to start our celebrations. We have loan approval. We're super excited. We're getting down to the final time frame, final day, the day we all wait for, the day we all can't wait for. So Paramount Title will now be able to schedule the closing with all parties, and we have multiple closing options for your clients to select that best fit their needs. So let's talk about that a little bit, our multiple closing options. So we obviously have e-closing with remote online notarization, or some of you might hear us refer to as RON. That's not the person, that is an actual thing. So remote online notarization is a powerful and amazing tool. I actually did the very first remote online notarization closing with a Paramount Title client, with one of your clients in Indian Rocks Beach. So
For the whole state of Florida,
cool.
mind you.
The very first, for the whole state of Florida, yep. So that was cool. We have tons of pictures of that and videos, and I even drove the client home after closing because her ride couldn't wait for her. So it was a great day. It was a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed that. It was a great experience, I think, for everybody. So now we have done probably thousands of these things, and continue to do them daily, multiple times a day, and they are a great option. The only caveat to this specific type of closing is the lender. Does the lender allow it? Will they allow the buyer to sign remote online notarization, and will they allow the seller truly to sign remote online notarization? So we do try to get them to work with us on that in situations where maybe we have a seller that's on vacation overseas, or maybe we just have a seller that's just overseas and living because they're in the military, or any type of situation like that. If they're not a U.S. citizen, though, just so that we make sure that everybody's on the same page there, they cannot use RON, because they do they pull like a soft pull on your credit report to verify your information, to authenticate that you are who you say you are. And in order to do that, they have to have a U.S. social and have a credit history within the U.S. for that to happen. So just a little caveat with that, but otherwise, they're a really great thing to utilize. Can the seller be outside of Florida? Absolutely. Anywhere in the world. Yes, exactly. And then, yes, if it's a cash deal, it's not a problem at all. As Tiffany said, if it is a loan, we will have to make sure that the lender will allow it. And there are some lenders that do allow it. UWM is a big lender that does these remote online notarization closings. So they do them all the time. We do a lot of closings with UWM, and they utilize RON. So that's one option. I know I spent a little more time on that one, but I'm passionate about that. I enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's a great avenue for us to be able to do our closings. And you guys can even join in on those closings when they're remote online notarization. So we have the ability to add you into the closing as the agent so that you can experience that time with them as well, because that's very important for you guys as the agent. You're down to the final day, you're down to the final time, and you want to be there to rejoice in that joy with them when they are closing on their dream home, or they're selling their home to move on to their new dream home. I know that that's important for you guys to have that final touch with them. So we do have the ability to allow you to join in on those as well with us. So U.S. citizen and alive. Mike, you're too funny. Yes, U.S. citizen and alive, that's correct. And yes, they can vote. So All right, mobile signing closing. So we have the ability anywhere in the US we have a network of mobile closers anywhere in the US that can meet with your buyers or your sellers anywhere that they choose. Maybe it's at their home, maybe it's at a Starbucks, maybe it's at the home that they're buying. Whatever is convenient for them and timing. We've done closings at 3 a.m. in the morning. We've done closings at midnight. We've done them at, 6 o'clock in the morning when we're dealing with nurses and doctors, and that's the only time that they can truly do it. So when I say 24/7, I really mean 24/7. They can do them anytime. Drive-through closings, as you guys know, when COVID hit, this was a big thing for us. We wanted to keep your clients safe. We wanted to keep you safe. We wanted to keep the team safe. So we started offering drive-through closings for them where they could pull up to the office. We would bring the documents out to them on a clipboard, hand them some gloves and a pen, and they could commence to signing the documents. We would go back inside so they could, roll their window up, stay in their air conditioning. We would go inside, call them on the phone, and review the documents with them if they had any questions. And of course, when they got to the documents that needed to be notarized, the notary would come back outside, the closing agent, and physically watch them sign those documents because she's notarizing their signatures at that point, and then they would, complete the deal. So that is still an option if you have a client that's not comfortable going into our locations to close. They can definitely still utilize the drive-through closings.
What's going on in the real world today, mostly, for closings?
As
In
far as
person.
closing types,
Are you doing mobile closings more
In
often? Are you
person.
doing e-closings in person, right? They're over the drive-by
in
stuff.
person, yeah, it's still very big, yeah. They want that experience, and I totally get that, so, but there are some people that occasionally they're not comfortable coming in the office, and they don't want anybody coming to their home, so they'll come to the office and we'll do the drive-through where they'll stay in their car. So we do still have those on occasion, but not as often and not as common as we did a year ago.
I've got a
And-
statement that I say all the time. It's awareness gives you flexibility, flexibility gives you options, and options give you power. So just the agents being
Love it.
aware that we have 4 different ways to close. you
And
can't-
if it's a cash deal, guys, your buyers can actually do what we call an e-sign, where we send them a link through their email, and they electronically sign that way. It's not the same as the Ron closing. It's not someone talking them through it, but they can call us and we can talk through their docs ahead of time with them. And then they just kind of click. It's almost like .loop. It's not .loop, but it's very similar. So if it's a cash deal, we can do that. And then I just want to touch on base for the mobile signing service, our NTS. A lot of companies charge you guys if you need a mobile notary, charge your clients. We do not. So that is one of the, a big perk to using us as your title company is we do not charge for our mobile notary services.
Good to know.
Yes. Excellent, excellent. And I've got a question here from Ken. I was just reading, if we are selecting y'all for the title and closing, can your information sheet that the seller ignores be included with the offer? I love that idea. And I would love to even go one step further with that. We can definitely include that with the offer, or we can include that, give that to you guys. You can add it to your .loop. But we can also, what I would like to do is send the authorization form. I'm a frustrated buyer, can you tell? I love you guys, this is awesome. So yes, we can also send you the authorization form. So a lot of times when we go to order a payoff on a mortgage, they require a wet signed borrower's authorization or seller's authorization form for them to release that information to us. So I would love to get those over to maybe, I assume Ange, Craig, is who I would send those to, and see if she could add those to .loop, and that would alleviate a lot of the time that we, lose in trying to get that from the seller
Yes.
to
usually
obtain
can be
that
one.
payoff. Perfect. Thanks, Ange. I see your comment now too. So, all right. So we will work on getting that over to you guys and having that added, if that's okay with you, Craig.
Yes, it is.
Does that mean?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. All right, moving on. So obviously, as you guys know, in-person closings is the most popular way that we handle our closings and do our closings is in office. And we love that as well, because that's the reason a lot of us as closers get into this business, is because of this experience right here. We love watching the joy of people, you know, buying their first time home or getting their dream home or selling and maybe moving to their, you know, Hawaii or wherever they're going to live their best life. So we really enjoy this part of the transaction with them, getting down to that final moment, that final step to get us everybody to payday and into their dream home. So always fun. So day 41, so now we're verifying that we received the lender's instructions and we're balancing to the lender's closing disclosure. So just to talk about that a little bit further, everything, you know, from this point, Craig laughs, everything from
This is the common
point-
thing. It's, oh my God, the title company can't get the closing papers ready. Well, because the
Yes.
lender didn't send the package yet. But you guys are the scapegoat for all the problems. How can you possibly balance the closing
Yes.
disclosure when they didn't send you the closing disclosure yet?
We don't have a closing disclosure.
And honestly, that's a challenge when
Um,
you're dealing with these online lenders that are in California, because they don't
Yes.
give a shit at 6 o'clock Florida
Yes.
time, because it's only 3 o'clock California time.
I will tell you from my own experience, I'm refinancing, and my lender apparently forgot that I am the title company, because we're obviously using my title company, and commenced to blaming the title company for saying we had to clear to close. And I immediately advised them, we are the title company, like I am the title company. We don't give the clear to close, that comes from the lender. So it really opened my eyes to what are they telling the consumer when we get to this point. And I can understand the frustration and why everybody is angry at us, because that finger truly is being pointed. Now, I'm not saying that we're perfect by any means and that we don't make mistakes. We absolutely make mistakes. We are human. We all make mistakes. We are not perfect. And are we going to miss things from time to time? We are. And I'm sorry, you know, we will make up for that. We stand behind our product. We will fix it. We will make it better. We'll do whatever we have to do. If we have to pay a little money, we'll pay a little money. But we, at the end of the day, we have a goal in mind, and that goal is in line with your goal, and that's to make everybody happy, and to make this a smooth and a great experience for you, for your clients, and for everybody involved. But again, there are obstacles sometimes that we have to overcome, and this is, you know, if there's any lenders on here, please know I'm not bashing lenders by any means, because we're partners with them just like we're partners with you. And we want to work together to get these things done and to make it a good, smooth transition and transaction for the clients, and for you as well. So, but we do have to wait for them to send us the information. And there are times we get closing documents and a CD to approve within an hour before the closing time. And that's very frustrating for you and for your clients, because they've got to wire money. And we're within an hour of closing, and we're just getting a CD to go through and review, balance with the lender, which typically takes, mind you, roughly an hour and sometimes longer, depending on who we're dealing with. So now we're past closing time. So, you know, just keeping those things in mind of the obstacles and the challenges that we have sometimes, and dealing with them. And sometimes we get them and they are smooth as glass. They run like a well-oiled machine, and you know, everybody gets what they need right when they need it, and it's no issues. But there are other times, and I hate to say this, but unfortunately more times probably than not, where we're still waiting on that information from the lender to get that done. The other thing is, you know, your buyer may say, well, they've already sent me the CD to review and approve. Again, as the consumer and somebody that just refinanced, and as many of you have done this as well, I'm sure that you've experienced this. They sent me a prelim CD to acknowledge so that the 3-day time clock could start ticking at that point. That's not my final CD. That's not my final figures for closing. It's just their prelim that they want me to acknowledge so that their time frame for closing can start ticking. And when it comes down to the date and time, that's when they get the package to us, and that's when they get the package to us, and we start working it from there.
So Sean, since, you know, this is something that we're seeing more often than not, in order to avoid any late funding delays, you know, there's a lot of clients out there that are, you know, relying on these closings for like sale sides, you know, they're purchasing same day. So what can a buyer do if they have an estimated number from their lender? Are they able to send funds beforehand to try to help expedite that process?
That's a really good question. And we have done that before. So if they have a prelim from the lender and we review it and see that it's pretty close to being in line, sometimes we'll ask them to add a little extra to it and send those funds over to us so that way if there are any additional costs that are not, shown on the closing disclosure, then we can account for that. And then sometimes we'll just have them bring their checkbook and they'll write us a check if it's under $500 for the additional funds. So they can definitely send those monies to us earlier if that's the figure they want to go off of to start with, and then we can accommodate in getting the rest of those funds from them on the day of closing or at the time of closing, depending on how much that money is. So.
Perfect. I think that's a good idea to do in a last minute situation, so that way everyone at least has that comfort knowing that the money's been sent, and then the last final touches on the closing disclosure will help to finalize everything and then get to the closing table and everybody can be happy.
Yeah. And I know we've gone a little bit over our hour. I hope you guys are okay with that and willing to hang out with us a little bit longer. We are close to being down to that 45-day time mark. So if you can hang out with us just a little bit longer, I'd love to continue on and get you guys to the finish line. So.
I say go for it.
All right. So, okay. All right. So balancing the CD, we talked about that and what that kind of looks like and what we need in order to make that happen. Day 41, the settlement statement is approved by the lender. Again, these are based on a perfect timeline. So if everything goes perfectly, as in we get everything we need from the lender when we need it, then we can start this process. Settlement statement's approved by the lender. Everybody's doing their happy dance. They're excited. We're ready to close. We're getting right down to that day 45, day 43. We're scared the world may end and the file may die now, but we're going to keep moving on because that's not going to happen. So day 44, we have our walking meeting, meaning our final walkthrough with our clients. We make sure the house is good, and sometimes this is where you guys have some obstacles. You get to the house and the seller's not packed the first thing, and you're like, uh-oh. So, that happens. We've seen it happen. We've seen some strange things happen all the way up to having someone dump their grandmother's ashes in the living room floor on the day of closing, yes. Because grandma wanted to stay at the house. And I guess they thought Hoover wasn't going to pick her up. But anyway, so sorry. It's a little joke. So you have day 44. Everybody's doing their walking meeting. They're excited. They're cheering, ready to go on. And now we're at the closing day. We've made it. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. All parties meet with us at Paramount Title or wherever they're going to close at that point. Lenders' funds and buyers' funds are wired to us. And then once approved, we, of course, disperse those funds to the sellers and any other party that is due money. So I want to elaborate a little bit on funding because I think this is another very sticky point, and I want to help everybody kind of understand the process of that and how that works and why sometimes it's not instantaneous. We would love for it to be, and we've looked at ways to try to help accommodate that, and we continually look for ways. As you guys know, we are a very tech-savvy company. And technology is huge for us, and we want to make all of this flow very quickly within minutes. So we are constantly looking for that. Right now, the way process works for funding is that, of course, we do the closing. We hope the lender has sent their money. Most times they have. There are times where they haven't, or they send them, it goes through their process and through their chain, and then it doesn't come to us until the end of the day. We wait for the buyer to fund and buyer to send their wires. Again, if we have a situation where we didn't get our closing disclosure approved until that same day and they wired the funds the same day, sometimes they leave from the closing table and go wire their money into us. Sometimes they are late getting to closing because they're going to wire their money into us. So that delays, obviously, funding. Also, if you have a mail away to a seller, let's say you have a seller that is in Canada or overseas, we're dealing with the delays of FedEx and getting those documents back to us. Again, COVID related because we have to wait for that. A lot of times we try to be a little accommodating with that. If we can verify the documents, they send us a copy of those along with the FedEx tracking. We can verify that it's tracking on its way from overseas to the U.S. Sometimes we'll let those funds get dispersed without having those documents in our hand. So there's other different ways that we try to accommodate those types of situations when they come up so that we can get everybody moving on and happy, especially if they're going to buy another house with the funds that they received from selling this one. So all of that being said, everything has to match and has to align. We have to have the funding approval from the lender, and sometimes that takes time. Sometimes we have lenders, we send them funding docs and they're on top of it and they get right back to us. I've dealt with closings where I've sent documents and 2 hours later, I'm still waiting on funding, and I've emailed them and called them numerous times. So it just depends, you know, again, they are also dealing with a lot of different files. They're trying to work on them as quickly as they can when they come through. Sometimes I get if there's a mortgage broker involved, I'll get them involved and they'll, you know, reach out and do a little nudge and we'll get something there. So it just depends on all of those things aligning, how quickly they align, how quickly we get everything we need, including funds in our account, and then we disperse. So let's
Sean,
say
talk
we're
about-
dispersing on a Friday.
Talk about how the key delivery works, because there's a lot of frustration on that side.
Okay. Yes, can I finish this one thought real quick,
Yes.
and then I'll go right to that? Okay, so we may close on a Friday afternoon. You may come in and close at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and expect those funds to be in your account on the same day. And in a perfect world, no problem. However, when you're dealing with a lender and you're still waiting on funds to come in, and those funds come in at 3:59 in the afternoon and we're starting to initiate wires, now we're at the mercy of the banks and the Fed Reserve. So we initiate the wire, let's say the funds come in at 3:59, we initiate the wire at 4:02. So we sent that to our wire department. They're doing their process, reviewing the documents. We always have a second and third set of eyes on any funds that are going out to make sure that the account information is good information and not fraudulent. So they verify that information for us, make sure everything is good, and then they hit the send button at 4:08. Left our account, left our office, now it's in the bank's hand. So the banks get the wire, they initiate what they need to on their side, it goes to the Fed Reserve, and the Fed Reserve sends it over to the receiving bank, who cuts their wires off at 4. So we've already missed our cutoff, depending on that bank. Some banks, if you're dealing with a larger corporate bank like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they'll receive wires in up until I think 6 o'clock. But some of your other smaller banks, credit unions, et cetera, they'll cut off a little earlier. So now we're on a 3-day holiday weekend, the sellers are upset because they didn't get their money. But I think understanding that process will help them understand, I mean, we're gonna do everything we can to get you your funds, but we have these things that we have to make sure align and that we get everything that we need in order to release those funds to the parties so that they can get their money. And then once it leaves our accounts, we're at the mercy of the banks and the Fed Reserve in getting those funds and accepting those funds. So I hope that helps you guys a little bit in understanding the funding process and the timing on that and why things flow and happen the way that they do. But it is absolutely our goal to get those out as soon as possible once we get all the money and the funding authorization in our hands and get that out to everybody, because we know how important that is for all parties involved. So Craig had mentioned the transfer of the keys basically at that point. So now we closed, we funded, and you are ready to pass the keys off to the buyer. So with that, we typically don't handle the transfer off of the keys, meaning we don't usually hand them over unless we are given authorization to do so, because that's out of our scope of what we typically would do. So we want to make sure that we are doing that at the time that you ask us to. If you've left keys with us, you've okayed us to release those, we're going to release those. Some sellers don't want their keys released until they have the money in their bank. So 3-day weekend, again, at that same scenario, we've released the funds, we've sent the wire out. We've got confirmation it's been sent out from our bank, but his bank cutoff was earlier and he didn't get the money, so he's not willing to release those keys. So those are where you kind of have to work with your client to see, you know, what you guys can do or how you can help the situation, if we can provide proof that the funds have been released so that they can release the keys, et cetera. So, Craig, were you going to say something about that?
Well, if the Federal Reserve received the money, isn't it as good as, or is there still risk of it not coming through?
Well, it should be as good as, but once it gets to that receiving bank, if anything is wrong, like maybe they told us the account was in the name of John and Jane Smith, but the account was actually in the name of John and Joan Smith, then they may kick it back and say the account, it doesn't match the name on the account. So, and we've had situations like that. Another good example is when you're dealing with Canadian sellers, let's just say, and it's a foreign account, and we have the SWIFT code, and they've given us the account information, but they gave us the wrong information. Or maybe, you know, sometimes again, we're all human, mistakes are made, they keyed it in one number off, that those funds can get kicked back. Words are hard today. They can get kicked back, and then now we're at a delay in getting those funded because we didn't know they were kicked back until Monday morning or Tuesday morning when we came back in after that 3-day weekend, and now we're having to reinitiate the wire. So there can be other variables in that can cause those funds to get kicked back, but knowing that they're going to go right back out in that situation.
If you guys
and
know
I'm getting
that,
worst case scenario. Sorry.
no, you're okay. Sorry. If you guys know that your seller is in a trust and the seller is a trust, let your sellers know that we have to disperse to the trust. So if they don't have an account for their trust, we have to get special permission to go ahead and disperse to them as individuals and not in their trust. And that's not always guaranteed that we're going to get an A-OK to go ahead and do that. So that can hold it up too. We try to explain this to the sellers ahead of time. You know, we tell them, hey, we have to distribute to the trust. Sometimes it flies over heads. So if you guys know as the agents that, hey, I wrote this, you know, this listing agreement, it's in a trust, drive it home to them. We can only fund to the trust. If they don't have an account for their trust, we have to see a copy of the trust and go ahead and get permission, okay?
And that's another really good point too, in that understanding we can only disperse funds to the seller of record. So if the seller of record is an individual and they want their funds to go into a corporate account, we can't do that. And even though we express that to them, sometimes we get documents back on a mail away that show that they want the funds going into a corporate account, and now we're having to call and try to reach out to them. We can't get a hold of them to let them know we can't disperse their funds because they gave us an account for something other than their name or the person's name and title, and we're having to get, you know, new information from them and a new disbursement authorization signed so that we make sure we have all our bases covered on that. So we try to be as accommodating as we can when it comes to that, but when you're dealing with someone's money and the amount of fraud that goes on out there, we really like to cross our T's and dot our I's on that so that we make sure that your seller is truly the one getting that money.
I usually have Jim Holloway comment on this, but give us an example. Is fraud really prevalent?
It's very prevalent.
Like how many
We get
attacks?
attempts every day. Every day. We get somebody who says, oh, hey, I just saw that, you know, my account with Wells Fargo, they've, you know, locked it up for auditing and I need to have my funds sent to my Chase Bank account. Can you change this? Like, we get those emails all the time. They're going back to the old school ways and hoping that we maybe forgot how they used to do that. We've been very fortunate, I'm gonna knock on wood, that we have, you know, yes, we have been able to combat that very well and avoid that happening from us. So, but we do take extra steps, and it does, you know, take a little longer to fund, but if it means the seller gets their money, it's worth it.
I had a
So-
personal example of that. I was in a closing. The clients were in the closing room. I stepped out. It was seller and buyers in the same closing room. Stepped out to get funding approval. While everyone's still sitting in the closing room, I received an email from a party of the transaction telling me that that seller who I'm sitting here looking at in the closing room wanted their money put into a different account. So it does happen.
Wow, it happens a lot.
It does.
And that's
Yeah.
why every email that you send says important notice, right?
Exactly.
So
Yes.
I want the
Yes.
agents to think of you guys as a resource. So I get a lot of calls. You know, Craig, who's a 1031 exchanger? So let's explain quickly before we end the Florida Agency Network, because a lot of people don't really know what that is. Why don't you give a quick overview of that and how Paramount Title fits in? and talk about the sheer volume that as a company we're doing, not just Paramount. Paramount, you guys, my target's right now 100 deals a month, and we're coming really close to that, but we haven't hit it yet. But the agency network together, Hillsborough Title, Paramount Title, all the other 40 offices you have, what did you close last month as an example? You know, roughly?
Last month, we closed over 1,200 files.
Wow. That's a lot of experience, right? And you've got,
Actually,
you know,
this
who,
year, every month except for January, we've closed over 1,200 files. It's been a little
Wow.
crazy.
but you have, you know who the good 1031 exchangers are. You know who the good surveyors are, right? And you've got those relationships and
Yes,
you have a
yes.
lot of clout because of the sheer volume that the company does. So the surveyors,
Yes,
if it's Mickey Mouse title, well, Mickey Mouse might carry more power than you, but if it's XYZ title and they do, you know, 20, 100 deals a year, and they're asking a surveyor for attention, and you come to the same survey and say, I need this done now. I'm sorry, it's the way the world works. You're gonna get your survey done first, right?
have a
'Cause
little more pull with that, yes.
exactly. So just a little brag fest. I like saying that because Paramount's great, but Paramount, it's like Century 21
I like
Beggins
that.
is great, but Century 21 Beggins is part
Yeah.
of Century 21, which is even better. And then there's even part of Century 21's part of Realogy, which is even better. So Paramount Title is part of the
Yeah.
Florida Agency Network, which is just bigger.
It's a big
Wow.
conglomeration, yeah. So, I mean, Florida Agency Network is kind of like an umbrella company that houses all of these different companies under it so that we can utilize the network of people that we do have, just like Craig just said. We have a network of surveyors, we have a network of, you know, lenders even that we work with on a regular basis that know us very well, know our processes, know how we work, and that helps the flow also.
And
We
mobile
have,
closers.
mobile closures, we have our own ancillary companies, our own mobile closing company, our own lien search company, we have our own title plant. So there's a lot of things that we have under the Florida Agency Network that allows us to really move through the process as smoothly as we can. Again, there's always going to be little bumps in the road here and there, just depending on the circumstances, but we try to make this as smooth as we possibly can for everybody. At the end of the day, we look at ourselves as a partner with you guys and with everybody that we work with, because we're all in the same business to do the same thing and have the same end result, and that's to get that person to the closing table, to get, you know, the final transaction completed, and we want to make you guys shine. So nobody, I don't think, I say this sometimes when I'm talking to people, but nobody ever sits down in the day to say, you know what, Craig, I don't like you very much today, I'm just gonna make you look like crap. We're not gonna have a good day today. So nobody does that. I mean, let's be honest. That's not our goal, that's not your goal, and we want to make you happy. We're in the business of pleasing people, making them happy, and making the end result be an exciting experience, an amazing experience that they'll never forget and enjoy that time of their life, because it is a huge transaction for them. Whether they're buying or selling, it's a huge deal for them, and we're dealing with people's money, so there's always emotions involved with that. So we want to try to keep those emotions in check for everybody, to let them know that we have this in control, and we are doing everything we can to get them to that day 45 or 20 or 30 or whatever that day is.
We are over time, but I think it's relevant for right now. Let's discuss the fact that you're a title agent and that you work for an underwriter, right? So you're basically like an agent and you get a commission. So we charge a title premium. That's what's it called? What's the word? Starts with A. All title premiums are set by the state. We don't make up our own rates, right? We're told what we have to charge.
Yes,
Promulgated rate,
that's correct.
right? So every
Promulgated,
title
yes.
company charges the same thing, right? We can vary our closing fees, but every title company charges the same thing. So we have underwriters. We work with Stewart Title. We work with American, all
First
the
American, Fidelity.
First American,
yeah,
Fidelity.
yeah.
We have all those. So how do you, and they're your boss, basically. They're your client. And they tell
Yeah.
you what to do. So you're delivering the news that your broker basically is telling you. And then you're just
That's
you're
correct.
just the agent conveying the message from your underwriter broker, telling you what to tell the customer, right? How do you
Yep.
choose which underwriter you're going to go through? Because you kind of get to choose which one.
So it's a really complicated system. So are you ready?
Whoever gives you the best
So
treatment.
we have splits with our underwriters. So each office, so many files will go to one underwriter, and then once we, like 2 files to this underwriter, 2 files to this underwriter, and 1 file to this underwriter. So once we hit that 2 mark with this one, we hit the 2 mark with that one, and we hit the 1 mark with that one, and then we go back. So that's kind of how we do our splits. There's no real rhyme or reason. However, if we have a file that we have a prior policy on and we see that it was underwritten through First American, then we're probably going to send that back through First American. Just makes things much more simpler, especially if there's any issues on title, then we have the prior, insured underwriter involved, and they can override that and make that okay, and we can move on.
So it's like playing
If
chess.
we do have a situation, it is. If we do have a situation though, where we have an underwriter that won't insure something and we think, okay, well, let's go back to this underwriter and see if they'll do it, and this underwriter and see what they'll do, and then we kind of play them almost against each other. Like this underwriter says they'll do it, why can't you? And so we have that leverage with them because we have those relationships and we have so many different underwriters that it allows us to go to another underwriter who's not willing to do something that we need to get done within the realms of the law, and that we have another underwriter who is willing to do it for us, and we can move it over and get the deal closed. There are some companies out there that actually will reach out to us and say, we only underwrite with Fidelity, and Fidelity won't do this. Can you guys do this? And we'll go to First American, and they're like, no problem, send it over. So we'll get the file from Fidelity, take it through First American, and we'll get it closed. So we do have situations like that where other title companies will reach out to us because they know we have that leverage and we have that ability, that strength. That's right.
Right. Let's talk about real quick. I know we're running late, but Bitcoin is a big deal right now, and a lot of people are talking about real estate agents doing Bitcoin closings. Are we capable of doing a Bitcoin closing yet?
We have talked about it. We haven't actually done it. I believe the capability is there for us to do it. And I'll be honest with you, I am not real savvy in the Bitcoin world, so I don't know a lot about those transactions, how they work. I know that we were going to do one a while back, but I think something came up and then they ended up changing directions and we ended up not doing it. So
Well, it's weird because
we haven't actually done.
Well, Bitcoin is a fluid dollar, so it changes. So you might think you're buying $300,000 worth of Bitcoin, and then when it actually gets to your bank account, it's only $285,000. Or you might win and it's $315,000. So I'm not sure we're ready for that yet as an industry, but there's a lot of hype going on, and just know that Aaron Davis will be on top of it when it's ready. He
is on top of it. He talks about this a lot. Yeah, he talks about Bitcoin a lot and talks about us doing those transactions, how they work, et cetera. So he's definitely on top of those. And it is something that I have no doubt that we will be doing in the future once everybody kind of figures out that fluidity of how those funds work. But just not something that we have dived into just yet.
So when you have customers with cash in the mattress that want to invest in real estate, Bitcoin will be their way to do it. Mike says, my client with the late wife house issues, could your title company figure it out and resolve it? Or wait, Mike, it's really, they're not going to get paid for doing that, and it is a business. So they really need to get an attorney to handle that stuff. And we're happy to help on little things that we can do, but that's a complicated mess right there. It's really going to take a lawyer to go through that.
Yeah, and we do have resources with that. I mean, we have attorneys on staff, but we also have attorney contacts that we use a lot to do probate issues and stuff like that. We have one particular attorney in Tampa that does a lot of those for us. So if you want to reach out to me, Mike, and let's talk about this, we can see, what we can maybe do to help you with that. I'd love to see if there's something we can do to get you past these obstacles. So.
Cool. Well, it is 10
Okay.
o'clock. We did an hour and a half. We thought this might take 2 classes, and
We did. We did. So really quick, once everything is signed, ownership of the property transfers, title documents are recorded, owner's policy and recorded deed is sent to the client within 15 to 20 days. Making sure, I'm just going to breeze through this really quickly, making sure that your client files for that homestead exemption. That's very important to them. And saves them quite a bit of money on their taxes each year. And then what if I want to move my closing up from 45 to 30 days or less? we kind of went through this and the timelines, I feel like, in the beginning, so I'm not gonna hit on all of this, but I know somebody asked if they could have a copy of this, particular, PowerPoint, and I'll be more than happy to share that with you so that you can read through that, and see what else is needed. But timing obviously is everything, and now we are at victory, and you guys have won the jackpot, and we've closed. So we are super excited for that, right? We've hit our day, and everybody is good. Wanted to get you to this page because this obviously has my information on there as well as Tiffany's information on there. If you have any questions, you want to reach out to us, we'll be more than happy to help you, talk you through those scenarios. Mike, definitely give me a call. Let's see what we can do to get that taken care of for you and what you're dealing with. And this has been a blast. I will tell you, this is the first one we've done like this. So you guys were kind of our guinea pigs, I guess you would say, to see how this went, and I think that it's went very well. There's been a lot of good questions, a lot of good feedback, a lot of good back and forth, and so I hope this has been very, very helpful for you guys as well, in the understanding the life of a file, how that works, what to expect, not when you're expecting, but when you're looking to close, so. But I think that's it. Craig, thank you so much for letting us do this and for letting us have this extra time with everybody. This has been really good, so.
Thank you.
Love
Great
to hear
job.
your feedback on this as well, so definitely share that.
Will do. Thank you,
All
everyone.
right.
I'll
Thanks,
end the meeting
guys.
now.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a
Have a
good
good
one.
day.
Bye.
Bye.